Hey guys, Felix here at Gary's Pool and Patio, and today we're going to walk you through our exclusive MadiMack 2026 package for your brand new pool. All right guys, first things first, on your app, which at your pool school, your sales rep or a representative with Gary's Pool and Patio will walk you through how to do everything we're doing today. You're going to want to go ahead and start off by turning off your pump. That does take a few seconds to register from your poolside tech, or as I like to call it, the big brain on your pool system, which controls our entire system through one application. Once the pump is off, we can go ahead and start to service your equipment. So some of the things you're going to see out on your pool, depending on your system. Here we have a very simple pool and water feature system. Each system is a little different. Again, your rep will go over the details with your specific setup in your yard after you're full of water and running. First thing you want to do again is turn off that pump. You'll come over here to the valve. Now this valve here is a two-way valve. Customers will ask, what and when do I need to do anything with this? And the answer usually is never and nothing. But if for some reason your pool is built at a higher elevation than your equipment, before you start opening the system up, you're going to want to make sure to turn this valve so that the off on the valve is facing either your pump or your suction line. What this will do, if your pool is higher than the equipment, will stop water from gushing out while you're trying to service your pump and your filter, saving water and making your pool equipment area a little less muddy. Once that's done, we can go ahead and open up your pump. Simple little tap gets this valve open. Take the lid off, and then you got your pump basket. Now that gargling noise is normal. We're introducing air into your system, which we normally don't have. So that's just the air getting into the lines, and we'll talk about that later as we get to your filter. Now on your system, you basically have four forms of filtration. You'll have your skimmer basket at the pool, which will catch all your large debris, leaves, bugs, frogs, and cool kid toys or floaties that get to the skimmer. Anything that's big enough to pass through that skimmer basket will safely get caught in your motor basket or your pump basket. This will make sure that any debris that can get through this basket isn't large enough to obstruct your propeller or damage your equipment or your pump from actually working. Once we get past that, we go to your pre-filter, which will cycle out any debris heavier than water, sediment, sand, dirt, before that water now gets to your actual filter. You want to make sure your pump basket is clean of debris. Now don't drive yourself crazy. You are going to get stuff in this basket. That's part of it doing its job. We want to make sure that the debris that is in this basket is not hindering flow of water to the pump. If it is, service as needed. They do have glass tops or plastic tops. You can look down to the bottom. If you see that there's a bunch of leaves or debris, or in some cases hear your pump louder than it normally is, usually an indicator that it's time to clear that debris and allow water to pass through. Once that debris is clean and clear, we can go ahead and put your basket in. Very important to make sure you put the opening towards the pipe. Again, we want debris to come in, but not get out into the motor. So we'll put that there. Once it's seated all the way, we can go ahead and close this up. Simple turn, and you're good to go. Now hand tight on all these things. Shouldn't need a machine or a hammer or any type of other equipment to close it, just a nice simple hand tight. All right guys, once you got your motor basket, it brings you here to our pre-filter. This is our pre-centrifugal filter. Uses Dyson-like technology to spin the water at a high rate of speed to separate any sand, sediment, or debris from entering into your actual filter. Once you start to get debris building up, while the pump is on, you'll have a discharge line and a discharge hose. Once you're ready, again, while the pump is on, roll this discharge hose out somewhere. While the pump is on, go ahead and open up the valve, and that debris will start to clear out using the pump as power to get all the debris out. Once you're done discharging all this debris out of here, if you need to, this buildup sometimes does stick to the canister. While the pump is off, go ahead and take this quick disconnect union, unscrew it, use your water hose on gun mode, get all that sand and stuff out, then go ahead and reattach this, and you're good to go. All right guys, now we're up to your filter. This filter is a MadiMack 200 square foot cartridge filter, which comes on all of our 2026 packages. So the first thing you want to learn about this thing is the anatomy. We got a few parts here that I'd like to go over. One is going to be your pressure release valve. This is very important. Whenever you open your system, and this is in severe cases, very rare but can happen, if you go a long time without cleaning your filter, you're going to build up pressure. If you go to open this kind of like a pressure cooker, if that pressure is not released, this lid can pop up on you and possibly injure you. So before you ever open up your filter, you want to release the pressure valve here. And you'll hear that air and pressure escape from that line. One of the things to note while we go through our system cleanup is we're going to want to leave this valve open. We talked about earlier that gurgling sound, that's air getting put into the system. Once we close all this up and start your system back up again, we want that air to escape, and this is where it's going to do that. And again, very much like a pressure cooker, you've all seen this valve, you've all heard this valve, and you realize and know how important this valve can be. Next, we have your pressure gauge. This pressure gauge is going to measure the pressure buildup in your filter, therefore telling you when and how dirty your filter is and when it needs to be cleaned. We'll go over where you want it to be and where it's at once we get the system started back up, but that's what that is there for you. We also have, like we talked about earlier for draining the water of your pool, your main drain plug on this filter. Once a quarter, once a month, 2 months, or as needed, the buildup that's in this filter while the system is running will settle to the bottom when we turn the pump off. We don't want that debris to build up because when we start the system again, all that debris and organic material is going to get right back into your filter. So while the filter is off, you can take your water hose, clean the actual canister of the filter while all that debris and junk comes out of that main plug. All right, now it's time to open up your filter and get your filter clean. Very simple system. You're going to have a locking ring on here with a latch in orange that says latch. You're going to pull that to you and turn counterclockwise. Very easy, no power needed. Once this ring comes off, you're good to go. Set this safely to the side. Use these little flanges here on the top filter to grab onto and pry up. And boom, your filter lid is off. Now, be careful when setting your filter lid to the side. These things can hit the ground and break. And as you can imagine, because they're threaded into the filter, can cause some unnecessary damage that we would need to come out here and replace. So make sure you safely put this to the side. Now here's your 200 square foot cartridge filter. You're going to want to simply pull this out, and it does take a little power there because it is heavy and weighted down with water. And you're going to want to go ahead and give this a rinse. Never ever pressure wash. You can bust these bands that hold the filter flanges together and essentially ruin the filter or significantly shorten the life of the filter. Now, after it's all clean, we're going to go ahead and reinsert this. One of the cool things that I love about our 2026 exclusive MadiMack equipment is the equipment itself and the usability of the equipment. Now, one of the big things from some of the other equipment that's out there is this center core. If you look into that filter there, you'll see a black piece of plastic. That's what's structurally holding this filter together, making sure it doesn't collapse with all the pressure buildup in your system. Some of these other filter brands that are out there will have that piece be a whole separate piece altogether with the footing. Now that footer that's on there goes into the bottom canister, but can break, and they're very, very pricey. The cool and easy to use part about the MadiMack filter is that that center core is built into the filter and has an easy to put on system for your filter. If you look down in here, you have a simple feeder line that filter is going to go right over, so you don't have to worry about secondary parts or pulling your filter out of anything, especially that center core breaking. Just going to get that filter lined up, put down, and now we're good to close the system back up. Now, one of the important things when putting your lid back on is you want to make sure that we keep this pressure gauge facing you. Again, this is a cheat sheet, if you will, or an indicator of when it's time to clean the filter. So making sure that it's visible when you're accessing your equipment is very important. Once you're ready to put this thing down, just give it a nice little push. You want to make sure that it's seated all the way around the filter canister. Once that's done, we can go ahead and put our locking ring back on. Make sure the locking ring is level and not crooked so we don't mess up any threads. I always like to give it a little drop up and down and then just give it a nice spin. Once it clicks on, you're locked up and ready to get your system started. All right, guys, now the next important step on your pump system is going to be your chlorinator. This is an automatic chlorinator feeder, so no more floating things hitting you in the face of the pool with chlorine. All this stuff is built into your system at the equipment pad. You're going to want to go ahead and open this up and insert your 3-inch chlorine tabs into the system, which is supplied for you at your pool school and pool checkout. Once you have your tabs safely put in, you want to make sure that this O-ring, brown O-ring, is in the lid. Because of the silicone lube that's put on there, it does sometimes stick or fall off. So you want to make sure that that's on there to not have any leaks at your equipment. Once you're ready, go ahead and close this up, hand tight, and your system is ready to get started. So remember, this isn't always the case, but in this case, for example, we wanted to show you, if you do for some reason need to close this valve off, again, the only reason you should need to is that if your system or your pool is higher than your equipment package, you want to make sure to open this valve up. Simple way to do that is just to make sure the off, which is here, is facing nothing. It isn't facing any of your lines. This allows the water from the skimmer to safely make its way up to the pump to continue your system filtering. Now that your system's ready to turn on, grab your app, open up your pool attendant app, and just turn your pump on. Now the app does take a few seconds to communicate. You're gonna hear the pump get really loud. That's prime mode. That's the pump pulling as much water as it can to make sure that it's filled with water and ready to run with optimal performance. Going back to the note we made earlier, we've introduced a lot of air to this line. We want that air to escape. Remember how we left this pressure gauge open? You're gonna hear that air escape through here. Once water shoots out, it's ready and safe to close. There you go. We got your pressure gauge closed. Everything's running. Here in about 10-15 seconds, you'll hear the pump dial back down into normal operations and continue its scheduled programming. All right, guys, that was a simple walkthrough on your system on how to clean your pump, your pre-filter, your filter, and get your chlorinator ready for treating of your pool.